So welcome to everybody. My name's Rhyena Halpern, and we're going to go ahead and get started today. So as I said a moment ago, please feel very welcomed, and I'd love to see in the chat where you're zooming in from, your intention for today, and if this is your first, second, third, or fourth session invitation. Okay. It's nice to see folks here. We're going to get started on this sunny day here in California. Wonderful. Okay. So I want to again extend my welcome to each of you. I'm an end-of-life doula and a volunteer with the Elisabeth Kübler-Ross Foundation, who's bringing you this study group today. I'd like to welcome the folks who are returning and any new people that are here today for our study group, the 5 invitations, discovering what death can teach us about living fully, a book by Frank Ostaseski. The intent of this study group is to unpack how facing death can allow us to live more fully. So the foundation is hosting this class, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit inspired by the life of psychiatrist, humanitarian, and hospice pioneer, Dr. Elisabeth Kübler-Ross. The foundation was begun 1 year after her death by her son, Ken Ross. And over the last 15 years, the foundation chapters have been created on 4 continents that continue her mission to develop hospice, palliative care, and grief support. In 2019, most of Kübler-Ross's archives were donated to Stanford University, which will create a digital library to make her papers available to the public. Though Elisabeth is often described as the death and dying lady or the creator of the 5 stages, she often referred to herself as the life and living lady. And essential to her work was her deeply held belief that unconditional love is the most healing medicine of all. And it's in that spirit that we offer the class at no charge. If you're able and so moved, please consider a donation to support the work of the foundation. You can find that at ekrfoundation.org/donate. I also just want to let folks know that I host a death cafe for the foundation on the 2nd Tuesday of the month, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And you can find out more about that on the EKR Foundation website as well, or on Eventbrite if you search EKR Foundation Death Cafe. So again, I am an end-of-life doula and a hospice volunteer, a death and dying educator. I companion people at the end of their lives, support families, and work with people who want to take the time and space to intentionally think about and plan for their end of their life at any point in their life. I welcome you to reach out to me if you're interested to find out more about this work. I do consider this work my spiritual practice, and it was inspired most directly by my mom's intentional dying experience 5 years ago, where I had this amazing gift of understanding loss in a whole new way. That loss was another word for love. So today it is our 4th session. It's a safe space for us and a welcoming space. And I invite you to be here fully. Our sessions are recorded. We ask that folks come to the session having read the invitation for the session. And we will have a short meditation and period of contemplation, a video clip of Frank discussing the invitation, small group discussions, and a sharing of key takeaways, a closing and short poem. We do keep folks muted just to keep noise down, and I'll unmute folks during discussion sessions. So our first invitation was, don't wait, seize the moment, seize life fully. It was a wake-up call. Our second invitation, built from the first, welcome everything, push away nothing, a call to open fully. Our third invitation, bring your whole self to the experience, a call for complete acceptance. I'd just like to ask you to pause for just a moment right now and just think, capture in your mind's eye what your takeaway is from those 3 invitations, and just hold that. Just take a few moments to contemplate your key takeaway from the first 3 invitations. We'll come back to that during our meditation and breakout groups. Our 4th invitation, and I was telling Susan Barber from the foundation this morning that even though this is the 3rd time I've read the book, or maybe the 4th time, I think it's the first time I got this invitation on a really meaningful level for myself. Find a place of rest in the middle of things. Find a place of rest. So each of these invitations build from another. I think of it as warp and weft of a finely woven cloth. In this invitation, Frank said so many great things, and I just wanted to start with his story about Adele, who was an 86-year-old Jewish woman, and I am a Jewish woman, a little younger than that, but not by much. And she had the greatest lines, one-liners. And if you remember the book, he tells the story of a nurse saying to her, "You're a little cold. Would you like a blanket?" And she quipped back, "Of course I'm cold. I'm almost dead." And I just think about that line often. It always makes me chuckle, as does Ram Dass's quote, "After many years of undergoing psychoanalysis, teaching psychology, working as a psychotherapist, taking drugs, being in India, being a yogi, having a guru, and meditating for decades, as far as I can see, I haven't gotten rid of one neurosis, not one." And Frank calls humor a form of rest. So I like you to think, like, in your body, when you feel amusement or delight or laughter, do you experience it as a form of rest? Frank goes on to say the place of rest is always available to us. We need only turn toward it. It is experienced when we bring our full attention without distraction to this moment, to this activity. With sincere practice, after some time, we can come to know the spaciousness as a regular part of our lives. It manifests as an aspect of us that is never sick, is not born, and does not die. Rest is a Sabbath when we stop and turn to worship the possibilities of the ever fresh moment. He goes on and he really introduced a lot of Buddhist concepts in this invitation, like samsara, craving, aversion, ignorance, obstacles. And he talked about the antidote to the samsaras, to craving and aversion and ignorance. He talked about breath and fear and vulnerability and the courage of the warrior to do what we believe is right, the courage of the heart to be undefended. And I especially liked what he said about fearlessness. He said, fearlessness is not about eliminating, ignoring, or pushing fear away. It's about developing a capacity to be courageously present with our powerful states of mind and heart, even when facing terror. So he makes this case for needing to find a place to rest. So the 4 invitations: don't wait, seize the day, welcome everything, push away nothing, bring your whole self to the experience. And 4, find a place of rest in the middle of things. We will now sit silently together for about 5 or 6 minutes in meditation. I'm going to do something just a little different. I'm going to read 2 quotes that he wrote from the book about meditation, because he does identify meditation as a place of rest. Then we'll have, again, our 3 minutes of silence. And then I will read you the questions that are abbreviated from his study guide. I will also post these later in the chat, and you will use the same questions in your small group. So we'll meditate, we'll listen to a quote from Frank, we'll have some silence, and then you'll hear the questions. Another moment of silence, and then we'll come back. Okay, and I'm hoping that the sound is okay. Yeah, I'm here. I'm seeing some nods and some thumbs up. Thank you. Because you just never know if everything's working okay. So with that, I hope you could just get comfortable. If you have a regular meditation practice, go for it. If you don't, the idea is to just sit silently, quietly, and maybe follow your breath. If you notice your mind wandering, just gently, kindly bring it back. Okay. So let me start our timer, and we will have this time of meditation. So sitting quietly with eyes closed, Frank says, meditation doesn't solve your problems, it dissolves them. The thoughts, the strong emotions, and the associated energetic patterns, don't be bothered by them. Let it all stop by itself. The object of meditation isn't to change ourselves, to throw out the old and bring in the new. It's about making friends with ourselves, meeting each and every part of our lives with curiosity and compassion. At the very end of the exhale, there's a gap, a pause. It can be a moment of faith. Breath has left the body, and we don't know for certain it will return. Do you trust that the next in-breath will emerge on its own? Can you rest your mind in that gap? We'll now sit silently for the next 3 minutes. Find a place of rest in the middle of things. This place of rest is always available to us. It is a choice to be alert, to bring your attention to this moment. 5 questions. We can be addicted to being busy, multitasking, productive to the point of exhaustion. Are you? We can be addicted to being busy, to multitasking and productivity to the point of exhaustion. Are you? Share a moment when you have felt calmness in the midst of chaos. Share a moment when you have felt calmness in the midst of chaos. Reflect for a moment. Reflect for a moment on the three common impersonal conditions. Do you tend to demand, defend, or distract in a new situation? Observe, feel, and sense your breath for several moments, counting each exhale. When you notice that you've been distracted by a thought, feeling, or sensation, begin the count again. How many breaths did you count before being distracted? Observe, feel, and sense your breath for several moments, counting each exhale. When you notice you've been distracted by a thought, feeling, or sensation, begin the count again. How many breaths did you count before being distracted? And last, discuss a moment when you had the courage to share your vulnerability. Discuss a moment when you had the courage to share your vulnerability. We'll sit for another 30 seconds or so. This would be a good time to count your breaths and notice how many you have before you're distracted. Welcome back to everyone. That's our meditation segment for today. I hope that you got a little restfulness in that space. So we're now going to turn to Frank's video presentation. Today's is a little shorter. They've been mostly 10 minutes each of the last 3 times. Today is about 7 minutes. So I hope you'll feel comfortable for listening to it. I am going to ask the lovely Jan Brewer to text me again if there's an audio or video problem. I will be sharing my screen and I need to turn off my audio and video, so I have no way of knowing for sure if it's working. So that's why Jan will let me know, but I hope I tested it a few times and I hope that it is just fine. So with that, just give me one moment and here we go.
Find a place of rest in the middle of things. You know, most of us think we're too busy, and probably we are. You know, but also the way we think about it matters. You know, when I remember when I was in school, you know, as a grade schooler, you know, that big clock on the wall, it seemed to take forever to go around. And summer vacations, they lasted forever, right? But now, there's the same 24 hours in a day, but I never seem to have enough time. There's an old Zen story about two Zen monks, and one is sweeping the garden, yeah? Like this, going around sweeping the temple grounds. And the other monk says, too busy, like that. We always think spiritual communities are very warm-hearted places. But they're not always, So this other monk says snidely, too busy. And the sweeping monk, he says, well, you should know. There is one who is not too busy. And what he's talking about, of course, is that even in the middle of activity, we can be still. We can have a sense of centeredness and groundedness and not get lost in the activity of our lives. Yeah? So how do we find a place of rest in the middle of things? There was a woman at our hospice, her name was Adele. She was a rough, tough character. She was 86 years old, Russian Jewish lady. She was staying with us at the Zen hospice. And she and I knew each other pretty well, and so the night that she was dying, they called me, and I came in to be with her. And when I walked into the room, there she was with her legs dangling off the edge of the bed in her nightdress, and I sat in the corner of the room. It's a good thing to do, by the way. Sit in the corner of the room. See if anything's really needed before you jump in to help. So I was sitting there, and the nurse's aide, the home health aide, was there with her. And very kindly, she turned to Adele, and she said, Adele, you don't have to be frightened. We're right here with you. And Adele turned to her, and she said, honey, if this was happening to you, you'd be frightened. So I stayed in the corner, yeah. And then the attendant very nicely, kindly said to her, you look a little cold. Would you like a blanket or a shawl maybe around your shoulders? And Adele shot back, of course I'm cold. I'm almost dead. Yeah. I hope I have half of her tenacity when I'm dying. Yeah. So I noticed two things. One was that while Adele was breathing, there was difficulty breathing. There's a labor to dying, just like there's a labor to getting born. And although we made all the appropriate interventions with oxygen and morphine, etc., there was still a struggle with the breath. Yeah. So there was that struggle. And then the second thing was that obviously she didn't want any nonsense. She didn't want to talk about tunnels of light or bardos or any of these things. She just wanted real, honest human contact. So I pulled up my chair very close to her, and I looked her straight in the eye. And I said, Adele, would you like to struggle a little less? And she said, yes. I said, okay. I noticed there, right at the end of your exhale there, before the next inhale, there was this little gap, this little pause. And I wonder what it would be like if you could put your attention there just for a moment. I'll do it with you. So she looked at me a little strange, but she said, okay. No, I didn't guide her. I didn't do some breathing technique or anything. I just accompanied her. As she would breathe in, I would breathe in. As she would breathe out, I would breathe out. Yeah. And then I noticed that she could find that gap, that little pause that between the exhale and the next inhale. That's a place where miracles can happen, by the way. That's a place of either fear or faith. Do you trust the next breath will come? Or do you start trying to manipulate the breath? And I noticed that she started to relax. And as she relaxed, the fear that was characterizing her face, it just seemed to drain away. And after a little while, she said, I think I'm going to rest now. I said, good idea, Adele. And she laid back on her pillow, and a little while later, she died very peacefully. I think Adele found the place of rest in the middle of things. You see? None of the conditions has changed. We're always trying to manage the conditions to get our rest. When I go on vacation, when I get my list checked off, when I, go on retreat. I don't know about you, but my list never gets checked off. So I have to learn to find a place of rest right in the middle of what we're doing. Yeah. She found it in the exhale. Where do you find it? You know, there's this phenomenon that happens. Some of you know it. It's a common phenomenon, happens to people newly diagnosed with cancer. They call it a secret gratitude. They don't talk to their doctors about it too much, you know, but they talk to each other about it. And oftentimes after the initial shock has subsided of the diagnosis, people start realizing that they can say no to things. You know, they can say no to that person or to that activity that they no longer wanted to do, where they always felt obliged to say yes. I remember one woman saying to me, "Now I can rest." Do we have to die before we can rest in peace? The fifth
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that video presentation. And I hope the audio and video was all fine for you. So we are going to move on to our next part of our program today. And we'll break into small groups and be able to have a discussion, be able to talk about how you find the rest and middle of things, what your takeaways have been up until today, and the questions for today. And I'm going to right now just take one moment and put the questions into the chat. These are the same questions that I read during the meditation. So here they come. Okay. And I hope everybody has them, yes? Do you have them? I'm not seeing, no, do not have them. 1 second. Yes, now you have them? Okay, good. Thank you for those thumbs up. Forgot to press enter. That was the problem. Okay, so you have the questions. And what I'm going to do is just give you a brief overview about how the breakout groups will work. We'll have 7 or 8. Yeah, we'll have 7 or 8 breakout groups, about 4 people per breakout group. We'll have about 25 minutes. So you'll have about 6 to 7 minutes, depending on the number in your group, to go over these questions and talk about the invitation. And I just really want to encourage you to do that, because this really is the heart and soul of the study group. It's about you really articulating what touched you about the invitation and getting to learn from your peers about what touched them. It really makes the invitation alive and relevant. So I hope you'll enjoy it. So I am going to go ahead right now and stop the recording while I give out a few more instructions. Welcome back. I hope that went well for folks and you got to have a restful time together. I'd love to hear some of the things that came up for you, things that you'd like to share with the group. Does anybody want to share? You can put your hand up in Zoom and I can see you. That's the easiest way to do it.
I don't know how to put my hand up, but all four of us were in medicine.
Go for it, Lee.
No, that was it. It was a wonderful group, and I appreciate everybody's input. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very cool. You never know. Zoom does that automatically. So
I was going to say, I was in the group with Lee, and I think I kept hearing myself in their voices and talking about just how much this hurry sickness that we're all pushed to, be productive and get things done, and how surprising I've found it, those still moments where we can just calm down and not feel the pressure to be a part of that, and how much that has impacted the people around me. And my sense was that each of us in our group had our own story around that. And it was very special that we got to share that with each other.
I think to elaborate a little bit on that is that we're all, I don't know if the rest of you know, but when you're working in a hospital, you have a list of patients to go see that day. And you have to take X number of minutes to have lunch. You have to have a break. You have to be done by a certain time. So you have to squeeze all those patients in during that time period. And sometimes you have a patient who doesn't want to get up and walk or doesn't want to do anything, but really wants to talk to you. Mm-hmm. And you have to make a decision. Do I sit and talk to this patient, or do I just, say, oh, I'll come back tomorrow? I mean, you have, and I think part of our discussion was, as we get a little older, we sit and we don't, as a 25-year-old, you go, if you don't want to walk, then I guess I'll go to my next patient. But as you get a little older, you'll take that time and you'll sit with them, which is what we kind of all talked about a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I hear what you're saying. That challenge of finding a place to rest is a real thing, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes, I know the patients appreciate it, but I'm learning to just say, you know what? I don't really care. So I'll sit with this guy for 30, 40 minutes and just talk to him about whatever he wants to talk to, because that's what he wants. He doesn't care if he gets up and walks across the room or moves his arm or bends his knee. He just wants to sit and talk to somebody, because everybody has been coming in and out of his room, poking him and telling him what to do and what not to do. And he just wants to talk to somebody. He's there by himself.
Mm. Yeah.
So the idea of what Frank was talking about, go sit in the corner of the room, has a lot of value.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, when he said that, I was like, man, I need to do that a whole lot more.
It also reminds me of the hospice volunteers that are on call and to go to hospitals when so that nobody dies alone. And they do such an incredible service. Who else would like to share? We'd love to hear from more folks. It's a fourth invitation. We have some time. It's all about rest.
Hi, Rye. Can I talk for a second? It's Jan.
Yeah.
I just want to piggyback on that quote that when Frank said, go sit in the corner. I've heard from multiple sources that that's where the angels hang out. That's where the different spirits hang out when somebody is getting ready to go, is up in the corners of the room. So that's what came to my mind when I read that in Frank's in the book. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan.
So if I sit in the corner, they're not coming for me?
Catherine, you have your mic off, so I'm hoping that means you would like to share.
If it's okay with the rest of my group, perhaps I can get some input too. We had a death doula with us who had some very wise words after each of us spoke, which we welcomed. But just being in the middle, in the zone where managing to rest and pause and just being present, myself being at the bedside of, I am in hospice and palliative care and very new to it. But what I have learned, especially from Frank in attending these invitations, just listening to people and the way that their experiences have been with death, and how we need to talk about it. It's not a topic that, you know, I can even mention to a lot of people. Oh, guess what I did today? I went to a death seminar, or I attended a death cafe, with any kind of, you know, positive reaction, right? So doing what we all are doing here is amazing. I just feel so honored and privileged to be with all of you who are willing to put yourself out there and be vulnerable in talking about these things. Like, it's not, it's, you know, I wish more people would do it. So we have to go out and advocate for it to happen and envision hospice, palliative care, envision a different kind of world than what currently exists, where doctors can take the time to sit and be present with patients, right? Yeah, I really enjoyed all groups, but tonight was particularly special because the topic was special.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Catherine. May joy be with you. You can go ahead.
Sorry, I was slow to unmute. Sorry. Thank you. Hello. I too was in a great group, and during our conversation, our dialogue, we talked a little bit about gifts. An example of a gift might be sipping hot chocolate, or going to the beach, or making caramels. And you had asked us to think of a takeaway from the group. And at the end, what I suggested to the group is it's quite possible, as Frank has invited us, is to maybe finding a place of rest is one of the most delicious gifts we can offer ourselves in the work that we're all doing.
Amen to that.
For sure.
I think that's what I meant when I told Susan that I finally got this invitation today. It only took me 3 or 4 times of reading it. Who else would like to share? Thank you so much. And I love that screen name, May Joy Be With You. It's lovely. Sharon would like to share. Go for it, Sharon.
Thank you. I was really privileged and honored to be in a group with Chivis and Sapana. I hope I'm saying your name right, and Catherine. And I learned a great deal. And I think there's a theme here that Lee was referring to. And part of it is we realize that to be able to rest, you need to first pause. But the second part of it, and I learned this from the others in the group, is giving permission. And when Lee said he's just decided after time in the field that at this stage in his career, he's going to give himself permission to be with people right where they are. And I think there were 4 women in our group, and we talked about how our culture doesn't allow us or doesn't encourage us to rest. And as women, not to be at all sexist, I think that we take it upon ourselves to take care of everyone, and sometimes to the detriment of ourselves. So it's about pausing and then giving yourself permission to take the break that you need. And you really, several of us, and Catherine in particular, said that you can't really take care of somebody else unless you take care of yourself first. So even if you're trying to be productive, and that's really important to you, you can only be as productive as you are able to. And resting benefits you and the people that you are caring for and caring about. So it was really interesting. Great to hear Lee say that. We know that healthcare professionals are under a tremendous amount of pressure to produce. And it was nice to hear that kind of reframing. I'm just going to do what I think that person wants. So looking toward others as well as ourselves, and being present for ourselves so we can be present for other people. So I was very thrilled to be in the group that I was. A lot of good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Final comment.
Sharon, thank you for summarizing that for me.
Anyone else? Final comment? We are going to move on to our close for today. And I just want to thank you for just showing up and letting yourself be vulnerable and connected and really experiencing this. And we all will have the chance to find that rest more. So this is our 4th invitation. Our next time together is our 5th and final invitation. And by that time, 2 weeks from now, I will have become a senior citizen, I'm telling you. I got a big birthday coming up here, gang. So it is Cultivate, Don't Know Mind. And that seems fitting, very fitting for me. And I hope for you too, the 5th invitation. So I hope you'll be able to read that chapter. It begins on page 232, and it's followed by chapters 15, 16, and 17. If you haven't done so already, please register for that last remaining session. And so, as always, we close with a poem. And it just so happened I found this poem. I've known it for many years and loved it. And it came up for my Shabbat celebration last week. And it just serendipitously was also our poem for the 4th invitation. So it's a beauty. It's by Lynn Ungar, and it's called Camas Lilies or Camas Lilies. Consider the lilies of the field, the blue banks of Camas opening into acres of sky along the road. Would the longing to lie down and be washed by that beauty abate if you knew their usefulness, how the natives ground their bulbs for flour, how the settlers' hogs uprooted them, grunting in gleeful oblivion as the flowers fell. And you, what of your rushed and useful life? Imagine setting it all down, papers, plans, appointments, everything. Leaving only a note, gone to the fields to be lovely, be back when I'm through with blooming. Even now, unneeded and uneaten, the Camas lilies gaze out above the grass from their tender blue eyes. Even in sleep, your life will shine. Make no mistake. Of course, your work will always matter, yet Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed like one of these. Beautiful poem capturing Frank's fourth invitation, find a place of rest. So with that, that's going to end our time together. I just wanted you to know that the foundation has the settings for chat set up so that you can only chat with the host. And I realize that's frustrating. I would change it if I could, and I will ask again to see if it can be changed, because it's wonderful to connect with other peers. So I will keep asking on that. So I hope you'll stay for a few moments, unmute yourselves. And I just want to end by thanking each of you for being here and thanking Frank Ostaseski, the Elisabeth Kübler-Ross Foundation, Santa Barbara Hospice, the Meta Institute, and again, thank you for being here. So feel free to stay a bit informally. I will stop the recording. I see Deb has her hand up.
Yeah, Rye, I was wanting to follow up on your comment about being able to share with the other participants.
Yeah.